Okay, we will get started. Thank you for joining us. This meeting is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There may be time for public participation as indicated by agenda item or as directed by the president. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodation should contact the superintendent at the school corporation's central office. This meeting will be electronically recorded and will be kept on file in the superintendent's office. A copy of the audio recording will also be available on the NLCS website. All those who are able will please rise and uncover for the pledge. Scott, do you want to lead? Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And before we get to be a public comments, Barb and Scott, I believe, went to Shawswick today. Was any other board member there? No. In our last board meeting, we had a young man from Shawswick, a student, Isaiah Lane, write us a letter, and so a couple of board members were able to eat lunch with him and talk to him today. So she's just going to give, and Scott maybe too, a brief update about what they did and saw today at Shawswick.
Okay. Scott and I met with Isaiah Lane and his best bud, Bladen Moore. And we had a really good lunch with them, had chicken sandwiches and french fries, and they were very good. We sat and talked. He was consolidated from Heltonville into Shawswick as fourth grade, so he gave us a tour of the upper level, which was 4th through 6th. Bladen had been there since kindergarten, so he knew the lower level also, so he gave us a tour of the lower level, which is K through 3. And then they took us to the rest of the gym. They took us to the outside, gave us a tour of the playground that they're hoping to help get replaced, showed us the equipment that they thought was damaged and needed to be replaced, and some where the water had drained, some trenches, and where the mulch had come out, and going into the playground, it's sloped, and he's afraid with somebody that's handicapped and crutches, wheelchair, would have problems accessing the playground because of these issues, and just wanted it brought to the board's attention. It was a very pleasant experience. We had a lot of fun with them. You want to add anything, Scott?
One additional thing, we did tour some of the rooms inside, and he was concerned that the building was too big for one nighttime custodian. So he thought maybe they could use an additional custodian to keep everything clean every day. But it was an enjoyable afternoon.
So thank you to Isaiah and
Bladen.
What's his name?
Bladen Moore.
For their early participation. We love to see it, and we know that happens because they're surrounded by teachers who make them feel, and administration in their building who make them feel empowered to do that. Okay, so we will start with B, public comment regarding agenda items. So I think we have 4. So we are going to be on a 3-minute timer just for everybody for your information. So the first I have is Angie Sanders. And I won't start your time until you start talking.
All right. Good evening. My name is Angie Sanders, teacher at Parkview, member of NLEA, and my address is 2931 Illinois Street. My husband and I have worked in this school corporation for well over 20 years. Over these years, we have seen boards make financial decisions that have negatively affected us for many years. We have had multiple feasibility studies that said do not build more schools, but the board did. We have had studies that said to close buildings, but we did not. And now we have 2 charter schools and 5 school corporations in this county. This is a huge failure and a disservice to the teachers that have stuck it out with the corporation and the community. All of us could go anywhere in the state of Indiana and the country, but we chose to teach and live in this community. During the negotiations last year, some, not all, teachers received raises, which should hardly be considered raises since we had been experiencing a pay freeze for the last 10 years. They should hardly be considered raises by comparison to corporations across the state. We were hoping to receive more money this coming year because we assumed our board would make fiscally responsible decisions. But if this board approves a minimum of 10 teachers for Olytic at $40,000 plus benefits, hires an HR director, and pays out 2 superintendent contracts, I think it will be fair to say that we will not be able to do that. If you choose this proposed spending, it will again be on the backs of teachers. Teachers in this district want the sacrifices that we have made for many, many, many years to now pay off financially. That will only happen if you make the decision to not to reopen the Olytic campus. If you choose to hire more teachers that you cannot afford, you will ensure that more leave and few quality teachers come. Please take into consideration the feasibility studies, the survey that clearly stated to you what teachers want, and listen to the experts. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Missy Collingsworth.
Hi, Missy Collingsworth from Erie Church Road, Shawswick parent. Just a couple of questions, or not questions, a couple of comments. When I took the survey and it said, do you have a student not in middle school yet? And I replied yes. My student is a 4th grader, and it said, what is the likelihood that next year you will send your child to OMS, send your child to OMS? And obviously I needed to put not at all since he's only in 4th grade, but there wasn't a follow-up question. So I couldn't come back and say, when he does come to middle school, where would you consider? So I just wanted to bring that out on the survey that was done. And then also, I probably have absolutely lost that one. Just the availability of school choice when we do get to that point where he's ready to go. We're used to a smaller school. We moved to Shawswick to continue there through 8th grade, and obviously we don't have that choice anymore. So, but I just wanted to bring up with the school survey that it was a little skewed on that, where you couldn't necessarily answer where will you choose when you do get to. And also I have friends who had left NLCS and they are going to LCIS, and they said, great, where's the link that we can fill out the survey? And that wasn't allowed to them. And I think that's a good chunk of people that were wanting to recruit back into NLCS, but they didn't have the option to complete a survey. And that's all I needed to say.
Yeah, so I'll speak to that real quickly. The reason that we didn't have it open to students outside of the system is it feels like, I'll just use the word that we use in academia, it feels like poaching to go to those, for us to go to St. Vincent, LCIS, and Springville, and target those parents like that. It didn't feel like an okay ethical thing to do. I understand we do know about, though, how many kids left to go to those. So board members can, if you wanted to just assume that all of those kids were going to come back, you could do that. But that's why. The second thing is, we are really, and I'm just speaking for me right now, actually. It's not that we don't care where your kid goes when they're older, but we're trying to figure out what to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Immediately, right? So it wasn't meant to be exclusive in that way, but we're really looking at the next year.
Right.
So
I just guess I thought there was going to be a follow-up question that would let me know. So
understood.
That was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me turn the timer off. Next is Andy Overman. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Andy Overman. I'm the digital design instructor at the Career Center. This is my first year, so everything is very new and
Welcome.
exciting. I look to our mission statement and our value statement as a new teacher to help me understand what's going on and kind of the history of things. So NLCS has a philosophy statement that describes our goals, values, and beliefs regarding teaching and learning. The first 2 sentences read as follows. The North Lawrence Community Schools provides an educational climate challenging students to work to their potential and offers them an opportunity to succeed within the boundaries of available resources and facilities. Within these boundaries, we provide varied educational opportunities for all individuals, thus encouraging the development of the whole person. My question is, will the operations plan for OMS compromise on our stated philosophy? Will we be able to stay within the boundaries of available money and staff and still provide an education that encourages the development of the whole person? Will the positive consequences of this plan be worth any negative consequences that may arise? I ask that any decisions we make are in accordance with our stated philosophy so that we serve the community to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and then Lacey Hawkins.
Good evening. Lacey Hawkins, teacher at BNL, president NLEA. As a corporation, we are facing a difficult decision about OMS. I wanted tonight to offer my perspective and concerns. I know you all want what's best for NLCS. You want to offer our students the best educational opportunities. You want these opportunities to be equitable across the corporation, and you want to attract and retain the best teachers for our students. We all know that part of attracting and retaining good teachers is offering competitive pay and benefits. We are currently in a difficult situation. We have struggled for many years to offer teachers competitive pay and benefits. This year, during the reopener, we added an additional $829,336 to the budget just to meet the minimum state requirements for teacher salaries. Our state legislature recently passed a budget that provided a very small increase for NLCS. Those two things alone make me very nervous. Each year, we want to see teachers get their contractual salary step. Giving teachers their contractual step, not a raise, just the step that's in their contract, cost an additional approximately $300,000. We have had too many years where NLCS teachers are told we can't afford to give them that step. As we look to the future, we know that we are facing additional costs to keep Oolitic Middle School open. NLCS recently posted 10 new teaching positions for OMS. We also sent out an employee survey asking about transfers and forced transfers. I don't know how we're going to fill these 10 positions. The survey shows that only 14.4% of the 228 survey respondents were at all interested in considering a transfer to OMS, and 61.4% of the survey respondents would not continue employment if they were transferred. However, only 166 of the respondents were teachers, so we do not have the breakdown showing the percentages for them. If we do not intend to fully staff OMS with transfers, adding 10 positions at a minimum salary of $40,000 and benefits adds an additional $500,000 to the budget, and 10 positions would not make OMS equitable with BMS. Doing that would push the budget, I imagine, closer to $1 million plus. As the bargaining team prepares for this upcoming contract negotiation, that is what's on our mind. Each year it has been a struggle to get an additional $300,000 just to prevent a salary freeze. Having already increased our budget to pay teachers the state minimum, it concerns me to see that we're expanding the budget an additional $500,000 to $1 million plus. I would ask tonight that attracting and retaining teachers continue to be part of our decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey.
Can I add one thing?
Yep.
Lacey, I didn't get a chance to see you last week after the VIP breakfast.
Yeah.
But I want to say I think you did a really good job on your write-up for
Thank you.
the person you nominated.
I had an easy kid to write about, so
Yeah,
it was a
it
good
had
student.
good flavor, good presentation, a lot of information. So
Thank
I
you.
didn't get a chance to see you afterwards. I want to let you know.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. So, any other public comment? Okay. Jim, did you want to speak to us?
Well, are you expecting a recommendation from the superintendent at this point, or do you need any discussion, or would you like to review the survey information? We're here to support whatever you need. We can talk budget, we can talk survey.
I think for the benefit of both the board and the community going through the survey results and what he's talking about with the budget is sort of a budget that was drawn up as what we would have to have in order to stay solvent
So
at
let's start
OMS.
with Lucas, then review quickly the survey.
Okay.
So those in the audience who may not have reviewed it, read it, or had a chance to interpret it
Yeah.
yet. And then I'll go ahead and review what I believe a
Yes, that's fine. And we are trying to be maximally transparent and make sure that these data are available for the public. If you can see exactly what we saw. So I just want to make a point that we are trying to let you know how we are making these decisions. Lucas, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Alec. Thank you, Board. I'll walk through the parent-guardian data first. The initial piece was describing the relationship with North Lawrence Community Schools, the 493 total responses. That went down to 486 after that first question. Then it went to, do you have children who are currently attending NLCS who are pre-K through grade 7? And then that's got to the center number, which you will see consistently through the rest, which is 403. How many children do you have that currently attend NLCS who are pre-K through grade 7? And 228 noted 1, 142 respondents noted 2, 25 noted 3, 8 noted 4, and we had 0 respondents that noted 5 or more children. The next one is about if you had multiple children that attend LCS, would you like to answer this? The question was asking that if you had multiple children attending NLCS, to answer the survey on behalf of your 6th or 7th grader, if they were. If they are not, still note their respective grade and continue to answer the questions.
I will say to Missy's point on the data, when we, the board, could see in Excel format, essentially, a spreadsheet format, all the responses. And we could see when there was a 4th grader and a 7th grader, or a 2nd grader and a 6th grader. We could see that. So just know that even though you didn't get that follow-on question you expected, the spreadsheet that was available to us did display that.
Thank you for sharing that point. And these were a checkbox. So when you did answer, you got to check all that applied. So 16 pre-kindergarten, 53 kindergarten first grade, 47 second graders, 56 third grade, 57 fourth grade, 75 fifth grade, 98 sixth, and then 97 seventh grade. Getting to our 403. As we look at the schools, again, 403 total responses, 31 responses tied to Parkview K2, 56 tied to Parkview 3-6. And we had 66 of the responses that need more, 49 through Lincoln Elementary, Shoswick Elementary 93, Olytic KA campus, as that school is noted, is 61, and Bedford Middle School 106. Moving forward here. Question: if North Lawrence Community Schools provided equal academic and extracurricular middle school opportunities, would you consider enrolling your child at Olytic Middle School for the 2023-2024 school year? 403 total responses, 165 respondents, very unlikely, 44 respondents, unlikely, 60 neutral, 43 likely, and 91 very likely. If available in-person academic and extracurricular opportunities were slightly different between Bedford Middle School and Olytic Middle School, would you enroll your child or children in Olytic Middle School? 403 total responses, 178 of those very unlikely, 55 of those unlikely, 79 of those neutral, 38 likely, 53 very likely. This next question is the checkbox, check all that apply. If Olytic Middle School were to remain open and staffed, which of the following staffing positions would you want to be available? Of the 403 responses, we'll go through the top list here. Licensed teacher across fine and practical arts, instructional aides in general education, instructional academic coaches, on-site nurse, on-site health aide, school resource officer, full-time administrative staff, library resource. Those were the top. And then, as you can see, looking down, the majority, and some of these compared to the ones atop, these were some write-in ones that were primarily single responses. Am I good to continue? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, so the final two compare to the two questions from above. So in this particular question, we'll be looking at 26 responses to, sorry if I'm getting anybody dizzy, scrolling so fast. Oops. Here we go. So on this one, I went back up. So we'll be looking at the 91 and 43 combined on this one. Taking those two numbers, we're going to look at a subsection of those when we get down here. So again, if Northwest Community Schools provided equal academic and extracurricular middle school opportunities, would you consider enrolling your child or children in Olytic Middle School for the 2023-2024 school year? And then this is respondents indicating they have a child in North Lawrence Community Schools in 6th and or 7th grade and responded with likely or very likely. So 26 respondents matching that criterion, 20 noted very likely, and 6 noted likely. So that same concept on the next question with the indication piece there. And I'll jump back up so you can see the other number. Try to go a little slower here. Okay. So on this, we'll be looking at a subset that comes from the 53 and the 38 combined, going down just a little bit. If available, in-person academic and extracurricular opportunities were slightly different between Bedford Middle School and Olytic Middle School, would you enroll your child or children in Olytic Middle School? Respondents indicating that they have a child in North Lawrence Community Schools in the 6th and or 7th grade and responded with likely or very likely. That was 27 of that subset we saw above. 15 very likely, 12 likely. And that concludes the parent guardian data.
Do any board members have questions for Lucas about, let's just keep it kind of clean, about the parent and guardian results? Okay. I don't see any, so if you would, Lucas, move on to the staff, please.
Our staff data survey. Which of the following best describes your relationship with North Lawrence Community Schools? There were 274 responses, going to 228, which are NLCS staff. 46 were none of the above. Which of the following best describes your role at NLCS? So again, our focal number here will be 228, so we have 228 respondents. 48 non-certified staff, 166 certified staff. 2, because we had a section, or one of the options was to write, you could write in if you did not want to denote those 2. So there's 2 for custodian, 1 just a parent, 1 admin, 1 lead facilitator, 1 special education aide, 1 administrative assistant, 1 former faculty member, 1 bus monitor, 1 parent, 1 school bus driver, 1 administrative assistant, 1 substitute aide, and 1 bus driver. North Lawrence Community Schools began the 2023-2024 school year with 2 middle schools fully staffed, including each building having their own administrators. How willing would you be to consider working in either building as a staff member? 228 responses, total responses up to this question. consider at all, 41 not willing to consider, 55 neutral, 14 somewhat willing to consider, 19 extremely willing to consider.
Let me add there, Lucas, to Lacey's question, that you could not see the breakdown of certified staff. You could in the spreadsheet that we were availed. The answer to your question, of the 166 certified staff that responded, 19 total were either extremely willing or somewhat willing. That's an 11.4% rate.
This is asking about either middle school, correct?
No, I think the question was,
Yeah, with 2 middle schools.
oh, in either building.
Willing to work in either building.
In either building, sorry.
Does this also include middle school teachers completing the survey?
It includes all teachers.
So Bedford middle school teachers probably answered that they would be willing to consider working in Bedford middle school.
We don't know. There was no indicator as to what grade they taught or where they taught, unless it was clear in the comments, which most people didn't make comments,
Yeah, or what they were certified to teach, so
or what they were certified to
it
teach.
lacked quite a bit.
Am I good to proceed?
Yep.
Yes.
If required to relocate from your current position to a similar one at Olytic Middle School, how likely are you to continue working for North Lawrence Community Schools? There are 228 total responses, 107 very unlikely, 33 unlikely, 49 neutral, 15 likely, 10 very likely, and 14 of the respondents were marked NA if they currently are at Olytic K-8. And that was the last question on that.
All right, any questions for Lucas?
Yeah, we run back to the parent guardian one, the last two slides you put up there, when did you generate those? That wasn't in my packet earlier. I came and got my printout.
These two, these were generated before we put these on public release.
They were in the email.
Yeah, they
version that
Okay.
sent.
they were, yeah. All right, anything else for Lucas?
Okay, you wanna talk money?
All right, Jim?
Perfect. Well, this is not a picture-perfect budget, but I was asked if I would not take and put 2 middle schools parallel, side by side. If you have a football coach, you got a football coach. You have a basketball coach, you have a basketball coach. If you have a science teacher, you have a science teacher. If you were to have apples to apples, that's what this budget is. And the survey had a question about if both schools were equal, right? So what I did is took 2 English, go to the sum totals at the bottom for me there, Lucas. First of all, it's best to start with the bottom line, begin with end in mind. And the end in mind is if you were to have 2 parallel middle schools, to have a middle school that would match all programs at Bedford Middle School would cost the district $1,862,542.79. And all of those salaries that are listed here are based on what current salaries are that we have people who are working here already earning. Teacher-wise, you won't know what a teacher's going to be. They could be a first-year teacher at $40,000, or they could be a top teacher somewhere in the 60s or 70s, right? So we just took a flat rate of $50,000 plus benefits, and that's how I came up with the $64,000 for a teacher salary and benefits. All right, that's where that number came from. Now, if you scroll to the very top, the people who would transfer from current Bedford Middle School to Olytic, or from another school in our district who had a license, you would transfer in already employees and not fill their position, but other than by attrition. It would be the 2 English, math, science, and social studies teachers. So those are given. those aren't out of that bottom line number I already just told you. Also, the assistant principal and athletic director, you have two assistant principals at Bedford Middle School. One is assistant principal and one is assistant principal and athletic director. One of those could be reassigned to Olytic Middle School, so that also would be subtracted from the bottom line number that I first shared with you. So, Lucas, you bring me back to the bottom line. You come to the bottom line, you would subtract the $604,522.91 from the initial $1,862,000 plus dollars. That leaves you $1,258,000 that Olytic Middle School, if it were to be open, or it's open, continue to remain open and have equal everything, apple to apple, it would cost you an additional $1,258,000 than what you're spending right now for your current 7th and 8th grade students, the way it is being done now with students who are at Olytic in middle school and Bedford Middle School. What that equates to is that if you receive $7,000 per pupil from the state for your tuition, for your education fund, that equates to you need to recruit around 180 new additional 7th and 8th grade students who currently are not enrolled in your district from other areas around you who would be new to break even. So the bottom line is that you can have the school, but you have to be aware of the fiscal responsibility piece of what are you willing to spend, and would you still want the schools to be equal? If they're not going to be equal, then you would need to decide which of these positions you would cut and not have parallel apple to apple to middle schools. So that's about as of a rough a sketch as I can put together for you to paint a portrait or a picture of equality. We're talking about strictly equality, no other options involved here.
And how many positions do we have open at BMS right now? Teacher positions. Do we know?
I don't know that. I know that.
John's here.
Positions
He might know.
for Olytic,
Yeah.
right now, we had 5 people apply for the Olytic positions as of today.
Okay.
We had 2 art. Was it 5? 6. We had 1 more today. Yeah, so I know there were 2 language arts, 2 science, maybe 2 art and something else.
Okay.
So how many positions?
John, do you know how many off the top of your head you have?
Yes, I do. We have 2 right now that are open, and we have an additional 3 of either a retirement or 2 resignations that are leaving at the end of this school year. So we will have 5. I have put forward a recommendation to hire someone for one of our positions, so it will now go back down to 4, but that's still pending board approval. So we will have 4 open positions after, if everything goes the way I hope, like for next Thursday, if that person is approved, we'll still have 4 open positions.
Jim, I was going to say,
That's just, I'm sorry, that's just certified. We have
Right.
multiple
Of the
non-certified.
Thank you.
Dr. Alley, in your verbal comments as you opened, you talked about duplication, and I think you mentioned in error like football coach or something like that. That's not listed on this. That title is not listed. That function is not listed.
You scroll down to the bottom here.
In
What
fact, no coaches I think are listed. No athletic.
They are ECAs, roughly about 25.
ECAs, okay.
Yeah.
But there are some already joint sports where we're
Right.
not going to duplicate. Right.
If you want to have a tennis team or I don't know what
Yeah.
the sports are. that are
So
here.
basketball is, I believe,
Basketball.
the only one, and maybe
Basketball, cross country, and track are the only
are
ones
the only ones who are not.
that are not joint.
So we recognize that duplication of that 25K line there may not be full.
Right, that'd be a lot lower.
Yeah, it's a small portion, obviously.
For some of these positions that already exist in the building because of the Dollins Elementary that we would need to fill through this?
Such as food services, since we already have a
Food
working
services-
cafeteria.
Is food services based on head count?
Exactly what I did is I did base the food service on
head
head count. You'd be adding just additional 2 cooks.
All right.
So you already have 4, you would only add 2 is how I figured it. So I just took head count and figured out what proportionally you would need to provide the same services to a near equal enrollment.
But none of these other positions already exist at the campus that we could use.
custodian. You might need 2 extra
Wouldn't need you.
custodians. You might need
It's the
another.
same building.
You might need another night custodian. Yep. You have more to clean, more square footage. I took all that into account. And you can see there's a nurse and resource assistants, the study halls, gen ed, your media specialist, assistant. I just simply took a list of what you have at Bedford Middle School and put it in the spreadsheet and then paralleled the salaries.
Got it.
All right, any other questions about the budget? The mock budget, to be clear. Okay, so Jim, do you have a recommendation?
Well, I don't know that I have.
Okay. Or do you have anything else to say?
Comments I should certainly share.
Yeah.
First, I don't envy the position you're in at all as a board. I know that you all know I've served on an elected board, and I've had to sit behind that side of the table before on issues that are emotional. My role as your interim superintendent is really to be here to maintain status quo, and that should be your norm, and to take care of the day-to-day operations, which we've been doing. But this is kind of one of those little extra things that got added in that has consumed a little bit of time, which has given me opportunity to certainly think about where maybe I, as a coach, mentor, and a guide, could assist you with making your decision. I do have a recommendation tonight. It's based on some of the survey data. It's based on when you think about financial responsibility and budget and where you are fiscally. It's based on my conversation with all of your administrators, because I've met with them several times and talked with them, and we've certainly dialogued about this dilemma that you have about what do you do with Oleitic Middle School. There's still more work to be done, I think, on this subject. I think that if you were to choose to, at some point, close completely the Oleitic Middle School part of the school, that you'd have to decide on what other options you might have available to you educationally for children in the community. That you have lots of other options still to talk about, but you're out of time. And my recommendation, first part of my recommendation, is going to be you need to make a decision. And I hope that you make the decision tonight as to exactly what you're going to do and how you perceive to solve the problem. But I recommend that you have your new superintendent assemble a committee. I know it's one more committee and a few more months of study, but it should be a superintendent committee, not a board committee. Maybe board representation on the committee. And they ought to develop and come to the board with some options of other uses of that school, correct? It's just sitting there. There might be other uses that people have great ideas out there that we don't know what they are yet. And that just be the topic that you're going to talk about. I think that the committee should then report to the board, and I think they should report to the board no later than February of 2024. Now, I'm not the boss, and I'm not your real superintendent, but from my experience, I think that would be the latest date that you'd want the committee to come to the board with options, not solutions. I don't think they should come with recommendations of what you should do with the school. They should bring you options, and then you decide from that list of options what you believe is best for the district, keeping in mind what's best for students and children and what's fiscally responsible as representatives of the community and as a board. And you listen to those options in February, and then I'm suggesting that you decide no later than 2024 what you're going to immediately do with that school, if there are any other options for it other than continuing it as a middle school. But I would say, in my professional opinion and my judgment of being here in the 4 months that I've worked with you, and you know my time is nearing an end, and you do have a new superintendent, but I think in the meantime, my recommendation tonight would be that you just cease and desist and suspend continuation of a middle school at Oleitic for the time being while you conduct your study. Don't continue to try to operate 2 middle schools for the next 12 months. That you suspend operation of it for the 23-24 school year, while then you figure out what you really need and want to do based on input from representatives of the community who would guide you with options. And so it would be my belief that, in my recommendation, all 7th and 8th grade children would attend Bedford Middle School next year. That would be my recommendation. Thank you.
thank you to all of our presenters and for the public comment. So, based on that, I would entertain a motion on this issue.
Jamil, I make a motion. I make a motion to suspend operations at Olytic Middle School for the 23-24 school year and establish Bedford Middle School as the sole middle school offering at NLCS during this time frame.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so discussion on this motion, and I also understand that this, as everybody in the room here knows, this is a very difficult, emotional decision, and so I wanted to give our board members, if they want, an opportunity to explain or say anything about why they're voting a certain way or how they feel about this vote. They don't have to, but I wanted to give them that option. But first, is there any discussion that anyone would like to have among the board members?
Discussion about what?
About the motion.
Do we have any idea what it would take dollar-wise to maintain the empty Olytic Middle School building?
We do. I don't have that with me tonight, but it's certainly a number that I could have provided to you, because we know what your utilities already are. It's basically be your utilities. You have to maintain your temperature. You know, you have to keep it at a certain degree in the winter and summer. So it's really your utilities, but we could come up with that. I would think I was told, I don't even want to say a number, I'd be wrong. Yeah, I don't know if it's a monthly number or annual number, but we'll get it for you.
You have it? Oh, okay. Okay.
I know from looking at some of the energy bills, since Shawswick and Olytic are similar and they have the larger adjoined buildings with the former middle schools, one is in the 15K range and one is in the 11K range per month for those utility bills. I'm sorry, that's electric only. That's not the water, but you would assume the water usage and such like that. I don't know, but that's the ballpark, Ms. Miller.
And that would make the number I was gonna say pretty close, because I would somehow remember $128,000 annually for heating and cooling.
I should mention that it is not broken out in the Duke bills that Robin's team helped me review for other research. It's not broken out by the elementary side or middle school side. It's one center, one cost center.
Any other questions or discussion? Go ahead.
I have a prepared statement.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go there.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other discussion, so Scott, you can go first. Okay, so is there any additional discussion amongst the board members about, I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity, about the motion?
Yeah. I'd just like to say a couple of things before we vote. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You don't mind?
As long as it's not your whole, it's
It's
not
only-
like why you're voting, because I agree, we should do that after.
It's only about 15 minutes. So, I'll just.
Brevity,
I'll narrow
brevity.
I'll narrow it down to 7, since you're anxious to close the school, but just a few things. No, if we kept Olytic open, we should keep it open, and make it another middle school. The first year would be tough, we understand that, but we know that also there would be a catalyst for greater enrollment in the future, all right? Any potential to increase our enrollment is much greater if we have 2 middle schools moving forward. It puts in a more competitive advantage or position against the other schools in our county and in our community. I don't, like some in our county and some in our corporation, I think, I don't hate the charter schools, but I do hate that we're considering a decision that will strengthen the charter schools and weaken us. A decision, I think, that will increase their enrollment and decrease ours, and a decision that will make them more competitive and make us less competitive. just two other things. Last fall at the NLEA-sponsored candidate forum at the PAC, Kirsten Collier mentioned the board's role of governance. I appreciated that answer, and it stuck with me. And I try to keep that in mind when I'm approaching board business. I think Dr. Halleck and a few others may say I still need to work on that, but I really do keep that in mind. And I think there are 5 basic principles of governance that the board should follow for the best interests of our students, staff, parents, and community. Accountability, transparency, awareness, fairness, and responsibility. Our corporation bylaws have a section on board member ethics. There are 2 sub-bullets that I think are important in this. One is thinking always in terms of children first, and the other is representing at all times our entire school community. Accountability, transparency, awareness, fairness, responsibility, always putting children first, always representing the entire school community. We know that if we keep a Lydic Middle School open, our enrollment will increase now and in the future. And if we don't keep it open, our enrollment will decrease. I know I'm new to the school board, but I also know that failing to keep a Lydic Middle School open is not good governance. We got a letter from a couple who retired from NLCS, and I'd like to go ahead and read a part of that. Is it okay? I'll read fast. All right. So from our point of view, we have too many changes thrust upon our students, parents, and community recently by our previous administration, leaving our system in a state that we barely recognize. One where lack of trust and respect has led to a true public relations crisis with the loss of students and staff to neighboring districts and charter schools. Many are opting to attend or seek employment at smaller schools, offering a more personal approach to learning. The loss of people has also obviously resulted in a loss of revenue. Our hope is that we will consider restoring Lydic Middle School, thus providing a smaller and equal option for those students, making Lydic an equal but smaller school of choice. Indeed, this is what many parents have been seeking by moving their children from NLCS. Therefore, we urge you to consider restoring Lydic Middle School to the facility it once was, and hopefully keep current students within NLCS and maybe create an environment where some who left might return. And previously, we talked about some of the flaws in the survey about parents who have taken their kids out of the corporation and wanted to fill out the survey and couldn't. And I think your answer to that was a good one. But we also received an email from a person in that category, and I think it's important that I share that as well. I'll read a little slower this time. I wasn't able to really participate in the recent middle school survey that was sent because I currently don't have any children enrolled in an LCS. But what is important to understand is that my child isn't enrolled in an LCS because of the middle school issue. We're a Heltonville family that got shuffled to Shoswick due to the consolidation. Rather than have my son attend BMS, I pulled him out of NLCS and is now attending 7th grade at LCIS. I enrolled him at LCIS for 8th grade year as well, due to the same issue above. BMS is not an option for us for a variety of reasons. And while it seems like my situation is a moot point, what I also need to point out is I have twins who are going to be starting kindergarten this fall. And the middle school situation is going to play a huge role in where they continue their education. I'm enrolling them in LCIS this fall so that my children will be able to be in the same school system. If I choose to enroll my son at BML for his freshman year, the plan was to move my twins back to LCS so that once again we are enrolled in one school system. But I will say if there is only one middle school option, that will most likely leave them at LCS and dealing with two systems. And one last point. 119 days ago, the board terminated the contract of the previous superintendent. We let the community know that we were serious about our campaign promises and we were serious about correcting as much of the damage as possible and moving the corporation in a new direction. The recent audit results proved that that was the right decision. Many parents, teachers, and community members were encouraged by that decision, and we began to restore some trust with the community. If we fail to keep a Lydic Middle School open, those gains will be lost. We'll be sending the direction that we're not serious about moving this corporation in a new direction. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else?
The way I look at it is, our school system is here for one purpose, our students. And that should be our number one priority. That's who the teacher serves, the staff serves, everybody up here serves. So I think we need to look at them and do what is best for them. And anybody you talk to, smaller schools, is where they think that family atmosphere, when they walk in the building, everybody knows them, everybody knows their family. So I think we really need to look at the smaller schools, which would make BMS smaller, would make it more manageable. But that's why we are here, is for the kids. I mean, we're not here because we're school board members, because of our admin, because of our teachers and staff. Everybody in this room is here because of the kids, and that needs to be our focus.
I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote on the motion. So the motion on the table is to suspend operations of the 7th and 8th grade at the Olytic K campus for the 23 to 24 school year, and all students in the 7th and 8th grade students in the NLCS district for that year would go to Bedford Middle School. I would ask that we vote by also raising our hands in this one. So all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so it is 5-2, the motion carries. I do want to give our other board members an opportunity to speak. Jeff, do you want to say anything?
I don't want to say anything, but I'm going to. I've been led. So, my dad graduated from Shelswick High School. I went to Shelswick till 8th grade. Then I went to BNL. It's part of it. Consolidation is part of the situation. I feel like most of us here went to BNL and turned out pretty well. We're good enough to be your board members, and so consolidation hasn't hurt us. I understand this is a tough situation, but to do what's right by the students is not spend money to fund a building that we really can't afford. I just don't think that's the case. We've got to do a better job at BMS of doing what we're doing, but I think to take those resources to Olytic, I don't think it's sustainable.
Okay, I'll just move down and I'll circle back to you too if you want to say something. So this is the third time I voted, and same for Kirsten and Tracy. And the two votes that I made before to keep it open were absolutely in good faith. And if I had a time machine where we could go back to where it was recommended to close Olytic when there were 179 students, and we could redo that with different leadership, that to me is the only way to fix where we are. I went to Olytic. A lot of my formative years are there. I realize that I'm not going to pretend it's not a crushing blow to people who live in Olytic. I hate it. I hate that we're having to do this. But with our prior leadership, which I agree wholeheartedly with Scott, we made the right decision, and I'm just speaking for myself, on getting new leadership. We made the right decision that this is our start line. This is where we got to, and my vote to suspend operations there is in no way an endorsement of prior leadership's treatment and what I saw as targeting of Olytic Middle School. I want to be clear about that. That's just speaking for me. But this is our start line, and this is where we are. And I don't want to be here. I do think there are a lot of opportunities for that building, but I don't want to jump to those when I know that a lot of people in this room are probably really hurt and disappointed. And I'm one of them. So that's the best way that I can explain why I voted this way, because it is the right decision in my opinion, but it still doesn't feel like a good decision. So I will just be vulnerable with you and tell you that this has been really difficult, and I'm sorry that we had to vote on it a third time. And I hope that you will be respectful to the board members who, even if whichever way they voted, this was really, really hard. And that's why we're here, is to make the hard decisions. But looking at all of the data, and the fact that we have all these positions still open at BMS, if you have not looked at the audit, you should look at the audit and see what we're coming out of. Our fiscal responsibility had to be paramount. So I don't apologize for my vote because I do believe it was the right one, but I am sorry for this community and for our kids that we were put in this situation. But what I would ask is that we move forward with a plan, and I think what Dr. Halleck mentioned about having a committee together to look at how can we best use that building to serve our kids, but also at the same time recruit and retain the best teachers. That's what we aim to do. But I want to make it clear that my other two votes were in very good faith to keep this open, and so is this one, and I don't believe we have much of another choice given our financial situation at the moment.
I'm voting the way I voted tonight. In case you don't know, I'm an Olytic middle school. I came up through middle school. My oldest went through middle school under Mr. Underwood up until the last normal year. I had a daughter that was a 7th grader last year, and then we eventually switched over to BMS at 8th grade this year, and I have a 5th grader at Olytic. So I'm very much ingrained in this decision and a stakeholder. I'm voting the way I'm voting tonight because I believe we, the board, as responsible leaders, have to make sound judgments based on the facts and the realities that we face currently. We must also take into account the future potential of our schools, always keeping in mind the well-being of our students and teachers. And here's a few important points. Everybody, if you've listened to me, you know I'm big into data. Last year to this year, our enrollment declined in 7th and 8th graders by 58. That's with the closing of OMS or with what happened there. The year before that, from 21 to 22, we lost 106 7th and 8th graders. The year before that, 20 to 21, that delta, we lost 55. So in those 3 years, you see 55, 106, and 58. Those are all deeply rooted in the consolidation. I will not argue that. In fact, I've studied that at length. I don't think the OMS closure is as much a causal factor as what we think it is in the overall declination in enrollment. I agree that we need to shore up things and start to increase our enrollment again. But I think attempting to open OMS by August would create a huge amount of uncertainty, churn, and stress on our already stressed system. I do not believe we can realistically recruit a school's worth of teachers and staff in time for August. But that's not a new thought. I stated that in January, and I stated that at the NLEA PAC that was mentioned in October last year during the campaign, that I think this takes a considerable amount of time. It was far easier to fire a superintendent than it is to solve this issue. I believe if we take a good, hard look, in fact, my original motion had details about a feasibility study. I've been very descriptive in what I think we need to look at. But I'm not the expert. I'm not the only opinion, and I think we need to look at all the options that we could have in our middle school landscape. But if we take a good, hard look at the various options of what our middle school offerings could be, fully informed by the best practices across the state and by what our own creativity and our own experts can conceive, then I believe we can make the best decision and have the best possible outcome. But I think that takes time. I actually was a little more aggressive. I thought we should target that decision by December 31st, which takes into account our negotiation process with our teachers this fall. But I have a similar time frame in mind, in time that we would, whatever decision we would make, we could go forth with a set plan for the 24-25 school year. Thank you.
First of all, I just want to thank Lucas and Mr. Underwood for working so quickly and so hard to get these surveys going and helping us with that process. I know that wasn't easy on top of everything else they have to do on a daily basis, and we just kind of threw that on them and said, oh, by the way, it's got to be done in like 2 weeks. And then I want to thank the community and our teachers and staff and everyone that participated in the survey as well. All that information was very helpful. As far as the vote, I mean, I don't really just want to parrot what Wendy said, but I mean, I also voted twice last year to keep Olytic open, and it's the last thing I wanted to do was to close Olytic. That's why I voted twice, to keep it open. But I had really hoped we would be in a better situation now than we were then, and we're not. It's worse. We had just kind of the mass exodus of staff, and it is just unrealistic to believe that we could have it staffed full of teachers and support staff
and students. What was the number? We would need 180 new students, not just the ones coming back from BMS, 180 new students to really make this work with our budget. So sadly, that's where we are. So that was all I really had to say about it. Thank you.
So I obviously voted 3 times to close Olytic, and I think there's a lot of people that will speculate on why. And exactly the reason, and I said this during when I was running, and both times, I've always felt that when you're elected, you are saying, trust me that I'll be able to take the information that you're not going to be able to get, boil it down, and try to make the best decision that I could possibly make. The only way that this is possible is to listen to the people that we employ. Regardless of what you feel about Dr. Mungle, it wasn't just Dr. Mungle. It was the principals, it was the counselors, it was the teachers all coming to us saying, we can't do this another year. So I'm not a teacher, I'm not an educator, but I can listen to people that are and understand that what they're going through and the challenges they're going through and take their recommendation, which is why I voted 3 times to close Olytic. I think that I look at this as such a wonderful opportunity. I started at B&L in 81. Didn't even know that there was a high school at Charles Ricker Heltonville when I was there because I didn't pay attention. My parents didn't say anything about it. And I think that's where the direction that we have to go with this. Children are going to mimic the parents. And if the parents that disagree with this are going to be loud and vocal and berate people and get on social media and do all those things in front of their children are then going to do the same thing. But if we look at this as an opportunity for something great, and I don't know how we do that yet. That's going to be focus that we're going to have going forward. But we all know that there's at least one option that's on the table, that we have a middle school out on the campus of the high school. I don't know that we're going to do that. But if we did, wouldn't it be a great opportunity if I've got a kid that's excelling in mathematics that I can send him over to the high school to take a math class? Or if I've got children that want to learn Spanish, I can bring a Spanish teacher from the high school over to the middle school because we're right there. We don't have those opportunities today because a lot of the times it takes more staff. We don't have the money for more staff today, but we're going to get there. So I look at this not as a horrid thing that we're losing something, we're losing our identities. I get it. I was a Shawswick farmer, I was a Heltonville Blue Jacket. But that's not who I am. Who I am as a member of this community is to try to find opportunities to best help the students. And there are opportunities out there with STEM and with coding and with foreign languages and so many other things that we can't get to because we're constantly dealing with struggles financially. We've got to get out of the financial hole, and I think we've made one step closer to it. I do have focus on the kids. I do want that to work. I put 7 through this school, and I've gotten ready to put a whole bunch of grandkids through. So I want it to work. So that's why I voted the way that I did.
All right. Thank Barb.
Next week, I've got the snow cone machine. I just think we're just doing a disservice to our kids, and I wished it would went the other way. I look at more as students and facilities and that type of stuff. So that's why I voted no, because I think we've got empty buildings, and this is going to create more empty buildings.
Anything else, Scott? Okay. So with that, I would take a motion.
I have one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Since we are going to one middle school next week, I'd like everybody to think about this. I think we need to change the name of Bedford Middle School to Bedford North Lawrence Middle School or North Lawrence Middle School and be stars, since we're going to be a feeder system. It should have been done when Shawswick went in, and it should have been done when Olytic went in. It gives these kids coming into that school a fresh identity, the way they could call the school their own.
Okay, that's something that we can certainly talk about. So with that, I would take a motion to adjourn. We do have a public meeting a week from tonight. It's a regular public meeting, May 18th at 5:30. If you've noticed, we've moved them a little earlier. So the news has gotten them wrong a couple times, but if you look at board docs, it should have the correct time. But at least once. We're getting there. But if you see 5:30, that it is 5:30. That it used to be 6:30. So I didn't want it. But with that, I would take in.
Is this going to be from now on or just next week?
That it's for next week, but I think we need to talk about it being potentially.
I thought it was just for next week.
It is just we're going to talk about it. We are going to talk about it. All right. So I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Bailey makes a motion. Do I have a second? Kirsten seconds. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?